Good morning, and we have another video. Okay, something much different in this one. Customer brought me a board. This is a joystick control board for something called a NiftyLift. NiftyLift is a company that makes those platforms that raise up, and you can change light bulbs in warehouses, things like that. But they're extremely expensive. And these boards here, they have a common issue. If you can kind of see that, well, maybe it's not going to focus on it, but there is an issue with a diode right here. Both of these, this diode fried. There's nothing else on this board that would lead you to believe there's a problem other than that, and it just maybe overheats. So my customer brought these in, and normally I work on computers, but just from a standpoint of fixing this board, it's just replacing a part. I can't troubleshoot the board, obviously. They can put it back in, and it should work just fine once this part is replaced. They did tell me that they sent this board in and said it couldn't be fixed, but they could send them a replacement for $40 or $400, something like that. However, these machines that this goes in, $60,000-$70,000. But the problem is that this company is known to, well, I'll just say that they replaced it with the same board after fixing it when they said it couldn't be fixed. With my customer, they marked the board basically, and they sent it in, and the refurbished board that was sent to them was their board. But at any rate, so I had to call the company and get the status on what exactly this part is. It looks like a capacitor, but let me switch to the microscope and I will show you what actually we're seeing here. Let's see, there we go. If we look right here on the side of this part, you will see, well, it's kind of hard to see on this one. Well, there we go. You will see a stripe right there on the end of it. A stripe like that with just one lead in front and one lead in the back indicates it's going to be a diode. And so I called the company and they told me the specs of this diode, and unfortunately I could not find the exact diode. But what I did find was a diode of this is a 10 amp 600 volt diode, and you can use something that is higher in voltage. That means it handles more voltage, but you want to keep the amperage the same. So I was able to get the 10 amp 1000 volt. So we're going to basically pull this out and replace it with a new diode, and this whole 25 pack costs $7. So you can see, rather than spending many hundreds of dollars on each one of these boards being fixed or replaced or refurbished, you can just replace simple parts like this. And that works with the Nifty 50 board, and it works with all sorts of commercial boards like this. It could be a CNC machine, it could be dynamometer, whatever. But when even though you're not a dynamometer professional, we'll say, you can still just go to the basis of the computer part itself and then replace that, and usually you're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna switch to another camera here real quick. Okay, so these boards, this is a little easier to see, I imagine. These boards have this kind of plastic. If I push on this, you'll see it's kind of a plastic rubberized coating for weatherproofing, I imagine. But this has to come off right here. How to do that is easy once you have this part out. So you flip it over to the bottom where you can see the diode. Here and here it appears. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to try to heat this from the top And in this particular case, you got to be careful. You got plastic here, you got plastic here. So in this particular case, it might be best to just basically cut this lead and cut this lead, and then you can just use a soldering iron and then just pop it right out. And then of course we'll get the rubberized coating off that spot, we'll clean it up, and we'll be good to go. So let me cut that off. Also, one thing to keep in mind is the orientation. This one is sort of in play. You'll see right there, there's that stripe. But if you forget which way it goes, usually the board, including this one, has the stripe where it's supposed to go. There you go. All right, so this one here, it's already missing half, so we're just going to cut that off there. It's a lot easier to work with in that way. Okay, there's that one. This one here, cut right there. Yeah, this thing's just falling apart. And cut right there. Now, if you're watching this because you have a malfunctioning or inoperable Nifty 50 board, I am easing into the era of actually doing mail-in repairs, and something like this would be something that would be simple to do. Now, as I was mentioned, you got to take this off, but you want to be really careful not to go across one of these traces. You don't want to cut it. So we're just kind of trying to get in there and just kind of clean it up the best we can without damaging the board. So this particular rubberized coating isn't too terrible. You just have to be patient, and usually you can get it right off that board. Yeah, it's coming off easily. Now, another thing to remember when you're doing something like this is that it's kind of like a fuse being blown in a car. You're fixing a fuse, but in many cases there's a short somewhere that caused that fuse to blow. So you have to keep that in mind, that is also possibly a problem. Like, you could put a fuse back in and turn the car on and immediately blows again. So, all right, so we cleared up this one here nicely. It's hard to see. I'll put this under the microscope shortly, but so that one is ready to go. And this one here is kind of around this corner. Again, you just want to be very, very careful not to score the board if you can help it, because doing that, it can be fixed, but that's a whole new ball game. All right. All right, so that's pretty much got it. I'm just going to work this a little bit more, because you want to be able to get a really good connection on this. All right, then you've also got this burned area here, but it looks like it's just residual burn. It doesn't look, well, it looks like it may have damaged this trace here, but maybe just uncovered it. I don't see it going too deep. But again, this is a probably 60-cent part that we're going to replace to possibly save the customer a $400 minimum $400 cost on this board. All right, let's see what we got on this board here. I'm going to try to bring this up a little bit. Okay, so it's not pretty, but it just has to be functional. We have to be able to get to that and that, and we can clean the rest of this under the microscope, because you want to do this just once. You don't want to try to do this 3 or 4 times. You just got to keep working it until you try to get, the middle part doesn't matter, but you want to get all of this away from this pad. Otherwise, you're melting rubber into the solder, and it's going to just be a problem. So, all right, let me use a brush here, see if I can get it a little bit better. Yeah, see you've got that trace is looking pretty rough. But I don't think it's completely gone. But we'll find out. We'll be able to test this in just a moment once we see where that trace goes. All right, that should be good enough. There's a little bit left over there for OCD purposes. I'll get that off of there. All right, well, all right, now the other side. I'm sure there are things out there in the market that can dissolve this rubber, but all it's going to do is change the chemical makeup of it, and I can only imagine that that would be super, super sticky. Kind of like when you put paint remover on something, it turns the paint into like this sloppy, kind of sticky syrup. Okay. That seems to be okay. I feel really fine with this pad right here. It's the bottom one that's a little bit worrisome. I don't know if the other one is just as bad. That's hard to say. Okay. So it looks like you've got a pad on the top and you've got a pad on the bottom. Let's see, that would be here. There we go. That would be there. So we've got to remove this. This is going to be a lot easier. And there are ways to replace this. You know, I imagine you could probably get away with just rubber cement or something along those lines to replace this waterproofing, or some sort of just gel, maybe even hot glue. I don't know. All right. I want to try to get it far enough away to where it doesn't come back up. All right. That'll work. And the other one. We want to try to stay away from using the heat gun when possible when dealing with stuff along this road, because there's so much here to melt, and that plastic, you know, you melt that plastic by being careless, and that's a $400 problem. So I know the prep part of this is boring, but it's, you know, it's what you have to do, so I figured I'd include it, because just soldering two things would be kind of a boring video, and it'd be super quick. All right, let's see what we got there. Using just a regular toothbrush here. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to try to introduce some solder into there to kind of get that hole sort of lubricated a bit. All right, it takes a minute to warm up here. There we go. So that should be really easy to get from the other side. That's good. This one here, same thing. One of these days I will list my tools because I'll tell you what, the soldering iron I'm using now is by far the best one I think I've ever had. It heats up in literally seconds. There we go. Trying to get that, and it seems like it's not going to want to come from that side, so I'll take it from the other side. All right, so then flip them around. See what we're working with here. All right, so we can see that sticking up. That's going to be super easy to do. All we need to do is put our tweezers on it. When you put the new solder, it makes it so much easier. And there we go. There is the part right there. And the bottom one right here, see how it's sticking up? And put this like this. Hey, be right with you. Okay, so now that we have this going, I'm going to flip it over and try to clean out the solder. One of those actually cleaned itself out. Is that it? No, that's not it. Yeah, that is it. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's kind of ugly looking. And this one here did not clean itself out. In other words, the solder didn't come out with it. So we'll just put a little bit of flux on these. A little flux on that one. Use our solder wick. And should be good to go. But yeah, so I was saying that soldering iron I bought, love this thing. And it's really nice, and it's got a super fine tip, which is really important. Okay, so we're wanting to empty this out of solder, and if we take this like this and lift it up, we should get a hole. Bingo. That's the way it's supposed to look. Love this soldering iron. And now we're going to do it with this one here. This is always the most satisfying part of doing this. All right. Those look fantastic. All right, so there's a little bit on that one there. There we go. There's a little bit on that one, so we'll just clean that one up a little bit more on top. Looks good. All right, clean that tip off. Okay, we're good to go. So now it's just a matter of taking one of our diodes out. And of course I'm going to give these diodes to my client because there's no point in me keeping them. This is a common thing. Now, if I got 50 other people across the country telling me about theirs and wanting me to fix them, of course I would do that. Let's see. There we go. So there's our diodes, and of course that's the stripe, so it would go like that in the board. So the thing to do on this is, I mean, there's no real important way to do it, I guess, but try to make it so these go down at a 90-degree angle. Like if the holes, let's say, were this far apart, you don't want to bend it clear out here. And if the holes were clear out here, you don't want to bend it right here and then have it going at an angle. So looking at this, it looks like I can get away with just bending it right there. But you want to try to bend it without putting pressure on this part here and cracking the ceramic or whatever plastic type of coating it is. Alright, well, that'll work. So, we're going to put it in here like this. Push it right through. It doesn't have to be completely on the board. In fact, since this has a history of running hot, I'm not trying to smash it to the board. I'm going to actually let it stick up just a little bit like that. See that? That's just personal preference, really. Also, because this trace here is fried, I'm thinking about soldering it on the top and the bottom in this case, so that way we know that we've got a super good connection on top and bottom for both of these. Alright, I'm not worried about it going anywhere. It's just I want to make sure it's completely soldered. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. That was the air compressor. Okay, so we're going to just add just a bit more flux. I've already done the other hole on top here. And then, quite simply, solder these holes. Here we go. And we want a nice, even connection. Nice, even little hill, I guess you could say. Little mound of solder right there. See if maybe it's easier to see on this one. Yeah, just want to fill the whole pad with it. And look at that. Perfect. All right, so before we flip it over, I'm going to cut the excess off on both sides. So now we've got that good to go. There's the other one. Flip it around. I'm going to put it at a bit of a different angle, make it easier to see. Actually, I think maybe that is maybe easier. There we go. All right, that's a bit easier to see, I think. All right, so we're just going to put a little solder on each one of these. Do this one first. The solder I just grabbed is a bit thinner, so it takes a lot more length of solder wick or solder wire to work. All right. Put a little more here. There you go. You can kind of see it fall into place when it does its thing. It goes from kind of like a blob. All right, this one here. That looks good. And this job is done. Now we could put conformal coating, we can do all sorts of stuff, but when it comes down to it, what we've done is we've fixed, let's go to this camera, we have fixed the board with a new diode. And we're going to do the same thing to the next board, but I don't know that I'm going to record the same thing again. It's the same thing we're doing here. Just want to give you an idea of what can be done with these very expensive machines. And again, if you have one of these machines and you have the same problem, which my customer obviously has had several of, you're welcome to reach out. I will have a website on my channel soon, but you are welcome to hit me up on my email, which is on my channel as well. All right, so we'll try to do more videos coming up in the near future, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.